"Can I sit here just for a minute?" whispered the one-legged girl. The CEO said, "You're beautiful." The rain had a way of erasing faces that night, washing away the city's noise, blurring lights into trembling reflections on the sidewalk. But even through the storm, something, or someone, stood out. A small figure shivering under the bus stop shelter, holding onto a pair of worn crutches as if the wind might steal her away. Her clothes were damp, her backpack torn, and one pant leg was neatly tied up where her missing limb would have been. She looked exhausted, fragile, and lost, yet her eyes held a quiet strength that made anyone who glanced her way pause. And that was when the black SUV rolled to a sudden stop in front of her, its headlights catching the fear in her trembling posture, moments before the door opened and the city's most intimidating CEO, Ethan Hale, stepped out. But what no one expected, least of all the girl, was that this powerful man would look at her as though she were the most important person in the world. Before she could slip away into the shadows, she whispered softly, almost like a plea carried on the rain, that she only wanted to sit for a minute. And instead of brushing her off, Ethan knelt in front of her, soaked to his bones, and told her she was beautiful. Yellow heart, if you believe kindness, humanity, and second chances can still change the world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. At that moment, the city was unrecognizable. It wasn't a place of traffic, deadlines, ambition, and harsh realities. It was simply a stage where two strangers met under the storm, one broken in spirit, the other broken in silence. For months, Ethan Hale, the youngest tech CEO in the country, had been trapped in a cycle of isolation. For all his success, his multi-million-dollar company, and an army of employees who respected him, he had lost touch with the world outside his towering glass office. Work had consumed him so fully that he had forgotten what genuine human connection felt like. He taught himself to be strong, decisive, unmovable, qualities that made him successful but also painfully alone. But that night, while returning from a long meeting, he saw something in the one-legged girl that pulled him out of his polished detachment. Her name was Lily Carter, a 17-year-old who had grown up faster than most. Losing her leg at 10 years old in a hit-and-run accident was only the beginning of her struggles. Her father left shortly after her surgery, overwhelmed by responsibilities he never wanted. Her mother worked 2 jobs constantly and still couldn't make ends meet. The world, cold and unforgiving, treated Lily like a burden instead of a child. Her prosthetic leg was broken weeks ago, and her family couldn't afford repairs, so she had been using borrowed crutches to get to school and her part-time cashier job. That night, she had missed the last bus, and after a grueling 12-hour day, her body simply couldn't hold itself together. She stopped beneath the shelter, fighting back exhaustion, hunger, and fear, hoping no one would notice her. She wasn't prepared for the kindness she found instead. Ethan didn't ask many questions at first. His instinct, one he rarely acknowledged, told him she needed warmth more than answers. When he offered her his coat, she hesitated, afraid of accepting help she couldn't repay. But when she noticed his eyes, calm, patient, and strangely gentle, she realized this wasn't the kind of pity she had learned to avoid her whole life. It was sincerity. Someone truly saw her, not as a disabled girl, not as a responsibility, but as a human being who deserved to be cared for. And so, for the first time in months, Lily allowed herself to lean on someone, physically and emotionally. The drive to drop her home was quiet, yet not uncomfortable. Ethan listened carefully when she shared tiny pieces of her life, how she was trying to finish school, how she dreamed of studying art, how she collected colors and stories because they made her feel whole again, even with a missing limb. She spoke with a fragile optimism that made him swallow down emotions he rarely allowed himself to feel. But when they reached her neighborhood, an aging apartment building with flickering hallway lights and broken metal railings, Ethan realized Lily's struggles ran deeper than he thought. Her mother wasn't home yet, she usually didn't return until past midnight. Lily didn't complain, didn't look embarrassed, didn't ask for anything. Instead, she offered Ethan an apologetic smile, as if she were responsible for the condition of the building or the cracks on the walls. He couldn't shake the feeling that she had learned to shrink herself so the world wouldn't find her inconvenient. When he gently suggested she call him if she ever needed anything, she nodded politely, assuming he was just being nice. People were often kind for a moment, but very few stayed. Over the next few days, Lily tried to push the memory of that encounter aside. She returned to school, to work, to long nights finishing homework at the kitchen table. But something had changed. For the first time in a long while, she felt noticed, valued. And that tiny shift in her heart gave her a strange courage. She found herself sketching again during lunch, drawing characters with missing limbs but unbreakable spirits. Art became her secret escape, even though she didn't own proper supplies. She used a broken pencil, a small notebook, and imagination to fill the pages with worlds where she could run without pain. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself unable to forget her. It wasn't romantic or impulsive, it was human. He had spent years focusing on numbers, graphs, deals, and company projections. His life had become a machine. But Lily represented something he had lost long ago: perspective, innocence, the ability to see beauty in imperfection. He realized he wanted to help, not as a savior, but as someone who finally felt the need to do something meaningful. Days turned into weeks, and one afternoon, while Lily was walking home from school, Ethan's SUV stopped beside her once again. She almost didn't recognize him at first, but when she saw his smile, warm, familiar, she felt something soften inside her. He asked her if she wanted a ride, and this time, she didn't refuse. Her body ached from the long day, and her crutches left marks on her skin. She settled into the car with relief she didn't bother hiding. Ethan noticed everything. The way she winced when adjusting her leg, how her fingers trembled slightly when she pulled her backpack close, how tired her eyes looked. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable, so he simply drove quietly, letting her breathe. Eventually, he mentioned that his company funded medical assistance programs for underprivileged youth, and before she could protest, he told her he wanted to sponsor her prosthetic leg replacement. Lily froze. The world went silent for her. No one had ever offered her something so big, so life-changing. She didn't know how to react. Gratitude mixed with fear, disbelief, and the instinct to refuse out of guilt. But when Ethan looked at her and said she deserved a life where she didn't have to suffer every day, she broke down in tears. Receiving the new prosthetic changed everything. Lily walked without pain for the first time in months. She felt lighter, faster, braver. Ethan accompanied her mother to the clinic, ensuring they understood every detail and felt comfortable. Lily's mother was overwhelmed with gratitude, repeatedly thanking Ethan for doing what she couldn't. She had worked so hard to keep Lily afloat, and knowing someone cared enough to help her daughter brought her to tears. But the transformation didn't end there. With her mobility restored, Lily blossomed. She focused better at school, improved her grades, and even joined an art club where she quickly became the heart of the group. Her drawings grew more detailed, more expressive, a reflection of a soul that was healing slowly. She began to feel beautiful in ways she never thought possible. Not because someone said it, but because she finally believed it. Ethan and Lily's paths continued crossing, not by chance but by choice. Some evenings, he would pick her up from school and they'd stop at a small cafe where Lily sipped hot chocolate while telling him about her dreams. Ethan shared pieces of his own life, how success wasn't as glamorous as everyone assumed, how he struggled with loneliness, how he had lost his younger sister years ago and had never learned how to let people in again. Lily listened intently, offering empathy beyond her years. Their bond was unlike anything either of them had experienced, pure, gentle, empowering. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, drowning the streets in orange and gold, Lily took out her sketchbook and showed Ethan a portrait she had drawn. It was him, kneeling in the rain at the bus stop, offering her light when the world felt unbearably dark. When she explained why she drew it, Ethan felt something inside him unravel: pain, healing, gratitude all at once. The weeks following Lily's victory at the art competition unfolded like a sunrise that refused to fade. Every day brought a new shade of possibility, a new softness in her steps, a new confidence in her smile. Her life, which once felt like a quiet corridor of limitations and whispered wishes, now expanded into open sky and endless roads. But with every new beginning came challenges, moments that tested her strength and reminded her just how far she had come. Though she won the competition, the real transformation began afterward. Schools, art programs, and even local newspapers wanted interviews with the one-legged girl who painted hope. At first, the attention felt overwhelming. Lily had spent years trying to stay invisible so people wouldn't stare at her missing limb or the awkward way she walked. Now they stared for another reason: admiration, respect, inspiration. One evening, sitting by the window of her apartment, she watched the city lights shimmer like stars scattered across the streets. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of dreaming bigger. Her mother sat beside her, tired from work but glowing with pride. Lily rested her head gently on her shoulder, realizing how much strength her mother had carried all these years, alone, exhausted, but determined. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. The silence between them had finally become peaceful instead of heavy. Across town, Ethan Hale found himself staring at Lily's artwork pinned on his office wall. He had never decorated his office with anything personal before, not even awards or plaques from investors. But Lily's art didn't just represent talent, it represented life. Humanity. Healing. He didn't fully understand why her journey mattered so deeply to him, but he stopped trying to analyze it. Some connections didn't need definitions, they just needed space to grow. A month later, something unexpected happened. A major art foundation in New York reached out, inviting Lily to submit a portfolio for a youth scholarship that could open doors she never imagined. It was prestigious, difficult to win, and usually required years of training. But they saw something in her work, emotion, soul, authenticity, and wanted to give her a chance. The letter trembled in her hands as she read it again and again, unsure whether to cry, laugh, or hide under her blanket from fear. She had dreamed of becoming an artist, but dreams often felt like stars, beautiful, unreachable, meant only to admire from afar. Now one of those stars had dropped into her palms, waiting for her to claim it. Ethan was the first person she called. He listened quietly, letting her excitement fill the air like warm wind. When she hesitated, doubting whether she was good enough, he reminded her of the stormy night when he found her at the bus stop, shivering, exhausted, and defeated. And then he reminded her of what she had become since then. She wasn't the girl who whispered for a minute of rest anymore. She had become the girl who created worlds with a pencil. The girl who walked on one leg but moved with more strength than those who had two. The girl who turned brokenness into beauty. The application process wasn't easy. Lily poured herself into her portfolio, spending hours sketching, painting, erasing, rewriting, questioning, and trying again. Some nights she cried from frustration, worried she wasn't enough. Other nights she stayed awake until dawn, driven by an unexplainable fire that refused to go out. Ethan supported her in every way he could without overshadowing her growth. He provided supplies and mentorship, not because she needed saving, but because she deserved the chance to rise without chains pulling her down. Lily's mother prayed over every piece of artwork she created, whispering blessings and hope into each stroke. Weeks passed. Winter arrived. And then the email came. Lily had won the scholarship. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She simply sat down on the edge of her bed, hands covering her face, and let the quiet fall around her. Because in that silence, she felt something she had never truly felt before: security. A future. A life that wasn't dictated by disability, poverty, or fear, but by talent, determination, and the compassion of people who believed in her. She emailed Ethan immediately but couldn't bring herself to type more than a few words. We did it. When Ethan read the message, he leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed. His company had seen many victories, but none felt as personal, as meaningful, as this moment. Helping Lily hadn't just changed her life, it had changed him. She had pulled him out of years of emotional numbness, reminding him that success wasn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in the lives we touch. As the day of her departure for New York approached, the city glowed with an early spring warmth. Ethan drove Lily and her mother to the airport, trying to hide the heaviness in his chest. He wasn't losing her, he knew that, but watching her step into a new world was bittersweet, like saying goodbye to a chapter that had made him human again. At the airport entrance, Lily adjusted her bag and looked up at him with the same courage he saw the night she whispered for just a minute of rest. But now, her eyes weren't scared, they were bright, brave, filled with purpose. Without words, she hugged him tightly. It wasn't a short hug. It wasn't polite. It was a thank you, a promise, and a goodbye wrapped into a single moment that warmed them both. She pulled away slightly and whispered something she had never said to him before. You helped me walk, Ethan, but you also helped me live. He swallowed hard, unable to speak. Lily turned, walking toward her gate with her head held high, her steps light and steady with her new prosthetic, her heart stronger than ever. Each stride carried the courage of her past and the hope of her future. Ethan watched until she disappeared into the crowd, then closed his eyes and smiled, not with sadness, but with pride. Because Lily wasn't just going to New York. She was going exactly where she was meant to be. And she carried with her every lesson, every tear, every victory, and every moment of kindness that had shaped her journey. Her story wasn't ending. It was only beginning.